Well, a very good evening to you, and what an evening it is as well. The sun is blazing outside, and Tranmere have given their hopes of survival a huge boost with a massive, massive win at home to Chesterfield. Their biggest win in terms of margin of victory for a year, but also big in terms of what else happened in League Two today with the teams around them dropping points. To look back on this, delighted to be joined by Tom Boys. Tom, great to have you on the show as ever. And you've got a big smile on your face. Can't imagine why, Tom.
I'm doing quite well here. I had Bradford away and I've got this one today. So it's made a very pleasant change from the early season ones when it was a lot of venting and moaning. But I mean, how good was that today? The second half particularly. So much, I think, after midweek, it was such a big game for the momentum. I think even a point today, like if you asked a lot of people before the start of the game, they would probably have taken that. And certainly first half, they were a strong team, weren't they? They moved the ball well, as you'd expect from a Paul Cook team and a well backed by a budget Paul Cook team, I'm sure, looking at what their bench had on it. And not for the first time, Luke McGee, 2 huge saves at probably quite pivotal times. If they get the first goal, possibly a different story. But second half, I think I can't remember a better half of football than that as a Tranmere fan, and not just because we scored the amount of goals. I thought some of the interplay, the passing, the moving, the organisation, the proactivity of the subs from Andy Crosby as well. I think certainly under the previous manager, I think you'd have seen us get to 2-0 and try and batten the hatches and bring on more defensive players or not change anything at all. Whereas he was very keen, it looked like, to keep the energy in the team. Yet we went into a bit more of a lower block, but we were organised and we still had obviously attacking threats, as we saw by scoring 2 more goals. So yeah, what a great day for everyone at the football club. Huge result. Obviously made better by Grimsby snotting Morecambe. So I hope Derek Adams is watching and getting upset by us all celebrating again. Good evening, Derek. And yeah, another 3 points closer to safety.
I think there's something intrinsically wrong with the answer you've just given there, Tom, because you outlined the substitutions the previous manager would have made if Tranmere had been 2-0 up, which, as we know, is a situation that Tranmere didn't enjoy at any point under Nigel Adkins this season. So it's impossible to know exactly how he would have reacted to said situation because he wasn't able to manage a Tranmere team to be in that position. But, I mean, look, that second half performance was absolutely magnificent from Tranmere today. But it started in the first half. Yes, I know that there were some massive saves from Luke McGee. That one in particular down to his left-hand side, I think it was, with his boot outstretched, was just phenomenal. Quite how he saved that, I don't know. And yes, there was the look of what was possibly the worst miss I've ever seen at Prenton Park, certainly rivaling that one from Terry Gornell against Wolves in an FA Cup tie in 2010. It was that bad. But Tranmere still worked incredibly hard in that first half. And I said to the person sitting next to me, I said, it's no wonder Dennis is whacked after 70, 75 minutes after every game, because the amount of closing down he does, chases everything, and just makes it difficult. He gives the goalkeeper or the defenders a real torrid time and little time to think as well. And that quality of final ball wasn't quite there in the first half, bar one absolutely delightful pass from Hendry to Patrick, where he ultimately didn't manage to pick our man out with the cross. But you could see that the attacking thrust was there, and it was just a case of getting it right. And after the break, they got it right straight away.
Yeah, and you mentioned Christian Dennis, and again, I think we've been scarred by like the old slow strikers, like the David Nugent signing. I think has scarred a lot of Tranmere fans' opinions of older strikers. With Christian Dennis, I've never seen him and thought like he doesn't not work hard. He works hard. His movement, if you just watch him, his movement and the cleverness of his play is light years ahead of the other strikers. Now, clearly, Father Time's catching up with him. But you see what that brings, and it gets defenders moving around. It creates space for the two behind. And he was excellent. And like you say, we got into some promising positions first half. I thought there was one, we moved it really nice over to Cam Norman and just put the pass too far ahead of Dennis, I think it was. We had a good chance there. Patrick got a couple of openings. So we've gone from a side who looked like they were never going to score to a side that looked like they can score quite a lot of goals. Harrogate the other night, we scored 2, could have been 5, really. So that's, again, I think, testament to Andy Crosby and the coaching staff. The mentality shift is massive. I think we're so much more positive and composed in what we're doing. We're not just whacking the ball and running after it. We're backing our good technical players to put the foot on the ball and play, move it, work those overloads with the wing backs, and look a good side. I mean, if you look at the Chesterfield fans, they saw us earlier this season when they took us apart away from home. If they saw us today, they wouldn't think it's the same football club. Certainly, I wouldn't have thought it's the same football club. But you're seeing that desire, that organisation. I mean, Sam Finley spoke about it in his post-match. You just listened to about the structure that Crosby's brought. And I think just we're playing to the players' strengths. Like we knew we had some good footballers there because of what they've done at other clubs. And for whatever reason, we signed them and didn't want to play to those strengths. Whereas now, I think you're seeing the improvement in so many of those players is so evident. And obviously, it's just a shame it's taken to this point for it to happen.
Yeah, it has taken far too long, hasn't it? The transformation, though, has been remarkable. It is hard to believe at times that you're watching the same players because, largely speaking, it is the same players. If you look at the team that started today, Hawks wasn't in it for starters, so it's not like we're watching a completely different 11, apart from maybe Regan Hendry, who was out injured during Nigel Atkins. But even he looks a completely different player to the one who we'd seen under Ian Dawes and under Nigel Atkins. I was fairly critical of Regan pre-injury. But what we're seeing now is a player who gets up the field more, who is busier, who moves the ball better, and is absolutely intrinsic to the way that Tranmere play. Him and Patrick in particular work as a really nice double act, and it's no coincidence that those two are pretty much pivotal to every attacking move that Tranmere put. I know that there are attacks that go down the right-hand side as well, but I personally think they look much more threatening down the left-hand side. So even he looks a different player. Finley looks a different player. It's remarkable. We can go back again and say it makes a mockery of the statement pre-Adkins sacking of how changing a manager doesn't actually work all the time. Well, it's obviously not true. It doesn't work all the time, but it clearly works a lot of the time, as has been evidenced by what we've seen today. I mean, you do wonder what has happened in that dressing room to really get so much more out of them.
Yeah, and look, I think a lot of people on this podcast had said for a long time that it was so obvious and so evident. I mean, I go back to the infamous Sam Finley post-match press conference where I think if any other football club chairman saw that, the manager would have been gone straight away. And instead, we dawdled on and we wasted some winnable games. I mean, it's frightening when you look and you think we had a draw at home to Morecambe, we lost away to Morecambe, and they're the team who were trying to hunt us down. We chucked 3 points to Accrington in Atkins' last game. But you look now, and it's like I said at the start, I think Crosby has come in, he's looked at, right, what are these players' strengths? And I felt sorry for a lot of them for a lot of the last sort of 12 months, to be honest, because you look at like Regan Hendry, Sam Finley, good technical players, high football IQ, to pinch Sam's phrase from his interview. But at the end of the day, they can't play a pass forward if there isn't one on. And so much of that is the structure of the team and the intelligence of the players around you to make the right run. I don't think it's any coincidence. You look at that group now, you've got Christian Dennis, you've got Hendry, Hawks, Jennings today, who did fantastic when he sort of went more advanced second half. Chris Merry, we know, is a very good technical footballer. and we're seeing like some of the little interplay and passing, and the fact that they are prepared to back themselves to pass the ball through the lines, little 1 and 2 touch moves is great. And we're seeing players who had been written off by a lot of people showing that actually they are good players. And like I said, I can't. I'm so happy on one hand, and then the other, I'm just so frustrated that in what is a diabolically bad League Two, that we've wasted a great opportunity this season to be in the playoffs. Because I honestly don't think the team is that far off it. I think, we could have signed a little bit different in a couple of positions, but you can't tell me that this group, with the way they're playing and the form that they're in, isn't as good as like Grimsby, for example, who have obviously, I think they're back in the playoff spot. So how are they after today?
I made that very point on this show, on the review of the Cheltenham game, that Tranmere have missed up a big chance this year, because it wouldn't have taken much for them to have been in and around that top 10. Certainly if they'd made a change of manager when they should have done after the Oldham FA Cup defeat, then who knows where they would have been, because there are teams up higher in League Two who were battling at relegation or battling against relegation pre-Christmas, and you just look at where they are now and think, what could have been. Certainly. One thing that really struck me today was the composure of all the finishes. And that smacks of a team now that is not only more confident, but is a lot more relaxed about the position and the jobs that you're having to do. Because when you're not relaxed, when you're worried, that's maybe when you snatch at a chance, or you just smack it as hard as you can. Look at the finishes today. The Davison goal. Brilliant composure. We haven't seen that from him whatsoever. We saw him miss 2 chances that he should have hit the target with on Tuesday, but great composure tonight. And I know it's easier to do it when you come onto a team that's leading, but composure shown. Finlay took the extra touch to make sure he just had the right time for the shot and then put it in the back of the net. The second goal was wonderful composure as well, because Christian Dennis could have just spun and smacked that goalwards and hoped for the best, but instead he laid it off, and Hendry was there with the composed finish. I wouldn't necessarily describe Norman's finish as composed, but it was absolutely clinical, the way that he drilled it into the back of the net and drilled it away from where any of the defenders on the line or the goalkeeper were. It's that composure that really impressed me.
Yeah, and again, I do think that is a product of the messages that Crosby putting in. I know some were critical on Tuesday night of us not like taking too many touches around the edge of the box, but it looks like there's been a clear message to look like sometimes if you make that one more pass, you greatly increase your chance of scoring a goal. And rather than blasting it against a defender and it getting blocked and going out for a throw-in, if you pass it to your mate and he's then got the space to get the shot on goal, you can score more goals. I know Brentford did a little study on that, and that was a big part of their sort of method of play. But you look at the finish. I mean, Josh Davison, again, let's give him a mention, because he's had a lot of stick. I'm sure he himself is disappointed with how his season's gone. But one thing you can see with him, I don't think you could ever accuse him of lack of effort. Like I'd say most of the squad, in fact, all of the squad, I will say that. And then the other night, you see he's a good teamer. Like when Hawks missed a penalty, he was the first one over. At the end of games, even when he's not been playing, he's been there going round the group, and it's very visible that he's a good lad. And today I thought he came on, he used that frame and power that he does have. That's definitely an asset of his. And the goal was a really good goal. I think it was a nice little bit of interplay, good ball over the top from, I think it was Hawks played it. He's used that power to get in behind. He's not rushed the shot, and he's finished it and got a really good goal. And hopefully, again, like, confidence in sports is everything. We know that, and particularly I think with strikers and finishing chances, you see the striker hasn't scored in 10 games. They snatch at chances, they panic, they start overthinking things. The ones who score a lot of goals, they act on instinct, they act on confidence, and I think you're starting to see that more now. I mean, Regan, that's obviously his second goal in 2. Cam Norman, I think that he's got a couple of goals in recent home games as well, hasn't he? So confidence is massive, both positive and negative, and you're seeing that in this team in abundance now. And some of the play, like when we're getting pressed at the back, we're not panicking and just thumping it back to the opposition and letting them come on to us again. We're looking up, we're seeing a pass, we're finding that pass, and we've got players, I think, in the right areas to make them passes. I think that's the big difference under Crosby versus before. But definitely composure, confidence would be two words that I think epitomise this recent run.
Would you like some stats, Tom? I'm sure you would.
As a stats man, I do like a stat, yeah.
Well, let's go through some. Tranmere have won 3 games in a row on home soil. It is the first time they've done that since March last year, when they went on the run of a 4-0 win over Stockport, a 1-0 win against Sutton, and a 2-1 victory over Mansfield Town. And ironically, today is also the first time that they've scored 4 goals in a game since that Stockport match, which was on the 17th of February 2024. And in terms of 4 goals in one half of football, the last time that a Tranmere team scored 4 goals in one half of football was way back in November 2020. I mentioned this game to the person I was sitting next to at the game, John. And he said, I was probably there. I said, you definitely weren't, because it was a COVID game. It was behind closed doors. It was the Grimsby Town match, which actually proved to be Ian Dawes' final game in his first spell as interim manager. Tranmere won it 5-0. Vaughan put Rovers ahead in the 10th minute. There were then goals from Peter Clark, James Vaughan again from the penalty spot, and Otis Khan before half-time. Paul Lewis rounding it off in the 86th minute. And then about half an hour after the final whistle, Keith Hill was confirmed as Tranmere's new permanent manager. The last time they scored 4 goals in the second half of a game was the game before that, November 2020 again. Vaughan scored twice. Woolery and Morris scored as well, as Tranmere came from 2-0 and 3-2 down to beat Port Vale 4-3 at Vale Park. So statistics show, A, how Tranmere have bad Tranmere have been at home in recent months, if this is the first time they've won 3 in a row at home for over a year, given that Prenton Park is usually a fortress, but also how infrequent it is that they score 4 goals in one half of a game.
Yeah, I mean, you don't score 4 goals very often, do you? But I think it is credit to the mentality now. It is positive in everything that we do. Like I say, the subs today, I think, was so different to what we've seen at Tranmere for a long, long time. I don't think you'd have seen them changes under Mickey. I think he'd have been at maybe, right, we've got the goal, let's tighten it up and shut up shop. But Crosby is very positive, and I think he backs the strengths that we've got. And I do think the squad is pretty strong now. I mean, you look today, like obviously the number 10, but we're playing 2 number 10s at the moment. It's obviously been Henry and Hawkes. Connor Jennings comes in today, and then you've got Kieran Morris as well. 4 players for 2 spots there, and you'd be quite happy with any of them 2 playing, wouldn't you? Jake Garrett from Blackburn, the games I saw of him, I thought he was a really good footballer, and he can't even get on the bench now. So there is some quality in that squad that can't get in. Young Josh Williams has looked good in his flashes. He can't get on the bench. So it is different. The mentality is probably the biggest thing that Andy Crosby, and it was the biggest thing he had to change. If you're trying to turn around a team losing every week, a lot of that is psychological. Yeah, the structure and the organisation plays a big part in that. You can't get confidence if you're getting torn to shreds. But I do think that's good. And I've got another stat for you while we're on the stat, and credit to Prenton Park Andy on Twitter for this one. The last time Tranmere Rovers lost a home game on Grand National Day was against Northampton Town in 1986, apparently, which was 39 years ago. It's now 40. So credit to Andy for digging that out. I'm going to assume it's true. I haven't fact-checked it, but it sounds brilliant. And let's hope we have many more home games on Grand National Day in the coming years.
I was going to say, I wonder if that's because Tranmere haven't played that often on Grand National Saturday, because I do remember many times in the 2000s in particular, the game would either be moved to a Friday night if Tranmere at home or supposed to be at home on Grand National Saturday, or they would be away from home. So I wonder how often they've actually played, but it is a wonderful stat. And as you say, let's hope they can continue doing that. The big thing about today, the huge thing, is the swing in goal difference, which now sees Tranmere have a better goal difference than Morecambe by 1 and a better goal difference than Carlisle by 7. Granted, they're 9 points clear of Carlisle, but it does count basically as an extra point. And Tranmere are now 7 points clear of Morecambe and with a better goal difference. That is absolutely massive.
Yeah, and it's been the bit that I think we've been concerned about, in that we've had that sort of point penalty really that we could have got caught by. But yeah, I mean, considering how bad we've been for so long, I don't know what the difference is in Crosby's time, what the goal difference is, but I imagine it's very positive. And again, I just think it's testament. We're using the attacking players that we've got better. We're being more positive. We're more organised defensively. We're not getting a goal up and then panicking and trying to hold on to it. There is a mentality to go for goals. And like I say, the teams below us, I mean, you think of your Morecambe player or staff today, and you look at that and you think Chesterfield in great form. That's it. If they beat Tranmere and we sneak a result at Grimsby, we've closed the gap even more. And then they see Tranmere 4, Chesterfield 0 before they kick it. That must be an absolute gut wrench to them, which my heart bleeds for them.
The goal difference under Andy Crosby is +7, by the way. So that shows just how much good work has been done there. One more stat as well. Pete Brown sent me this one. He said, we are above 22nd for the first time since beating Carlisle on January the 4th, 18 games ago. At that point, Tranmere were 1 point ahead of Swindon with 2 games in hand on Swindon. Swindon are now 18 points clear of 23rd place, which highlights how good a run Swindon have been on under Ian Holloway, to be fair, but also shows the position Tranmere were in and potentially could have been in now if they hadn't had as long under Nigel Adkins and that miserable 10-game run without a win. There are some questions coming in. Gary Foster, I will get onto your question in a moment. I can't enlighten you on the accounts at the moment, but we can talk about the future in terms of who is going to be the new manager, and we'll talk about Crosby because MG has mentioned it as well. So as Rover in terms of what happens with him going forward. But I do want to read out some of the messages that we got post-match. It won't surprise you to hear that a lot of people have been out enjoying the sunshine as opposed to actually getting in touch with the podcast account following a victory. But Ray says one thing that we need to ask is why are we playing so much better now than we were under Adkins? Should Crosby be given a contract? Also, what players should we keep for next season? Matt says Andy Crosby take a bow since he took charge. His man management tactics and in-game changes of strategy have been superb. Should be regarded as a serious contender to become the permanent manager of this club. Rob says phenomenal. Don't think we were terrible first half and certainly in the minority asking for halftime changes. What a club this is. Andy Crosby's balmy army. Dom tried to get a picture of the moon above the Johnny King stand, but it didn't show on camera. There are blue skies and sunshine once more on the horizon for TRFC. Nervy first half, 2 big saves from McGee, tremendous second half, steamrolled them with skill, tenacity and goals. Mark, best half of football I've seen us play for years. Could have had more as well. Delighted for Davison. He has been short of confidence, so I'm hoping this kicks him on now. Took it very well. I'm saying it very quietly, but I think that is us safe now. Grange Mount says, Crosby just doing it. Players and fans responding. Points on the board. Life is good on a Saturday afternoon. I would buy him a pint. O2 Collicott says, crazy result, but fantastic performance. Second half especially, topped off by watching Paul Cook on the touchline for 90 minutes. The Cop was the loudest I've heard it this season. We are staying up. Another Rob says, very scrappy first half, but the second half performance, where has that been hiding? 5 more cup finals left, and I think 2 more wins will guarantee our Football League status. Mike Chris, must admit I was nervous at half-time, but what a second half from the lads. The midfield bossed Chesterfield off the park. Luke McGee was a spectator. Vital 3 points today, but if we can get the 3 against Accrington next weekend, it should be enough for safety. And let's pick 2 more. Ron says, bought my little cousin. His family are full of Reds, but got my claws in, and his first ever game today. Absolutely incredible. And he was buzzing. He even wanted a scarf. Not sure how to tell him to never expect that again anytime soon. That's an anomaly. My daughter, who's 5, did come to the game today. And as she was walking away, she said to me, I cannot believe what I've just witnessed. And I felt like saying, you and me both. You and me both. A few people there commenting on the situation with the table. So as it is, Tranmere have got 43 points with 5 games remaining. They're now above Accrington, who are 1 point worse off, but do have a better goal difference. And Morecambe sit on 36 points, so 7 points below Tranmere, 6 points behind Accrington. Tranmere need just 1 more win, don't they? There's no way that Tranmere get to 46 points and Morecambe overtake them, surely, particularly if that win for Rovers is at Accrington next week, which gives them a bit of breathing room against Accrington. But if Tranmere get to 46 points, you're then asking Morecambe to win 4 of their final 5 games. And I cannot see that happening.
No, and again, that Accrington game now becomes really big, doesn't it? Almost like I mean, we've seen them have a cup final every week, don't we? But that one particularly, and that they've just been walloped 2 games in a row. We're looking like we can score quite a lot of goals. So I mean, hopefully it doesn't become a 0-0 after all of that. But a great chance to go there, put a gap between us and them, and I don't want everyone to be relaxed, but I just look at the way we're playing, the way we're going about things. I don't fear anyone, and even like the Doncasters and the Crews who've got to come to Tranmere with the pressure of playoffs or automatics. I think they'll be fearing coming to Tranmere now, to be brutally honest, because you look at our form since under Crosby, we're playing like a really strong team. The crowd have come alive again because of what they're seeing on the football pitch. So it's a really hard game for anyone against Tranmere now. So I think one more win, I think, definitely does it. But it wouldn't shock me if we kept churning results out and ultimately finish quite comfortably away from the bottom 2. I mean, hopefully that is the case. And hopefully that then leads to momentum to take into next season, because I think we've seen the power of that, and that was maybe something at the back end of last season. We had that very flat finish after Wrexham, didn't we? And I know we had some decent draws at the start of the season against good teams, but I felt we lost a lot of momentum that we maybe had from that end of season. And you only have to look at Carlisle and ourselves when we had the back-to-back relegations and promotions to see the sort of end of a season can often lead to a good start to the next one. I mean, Doncaster, similar, weren't they? They were down the bottom. Grant McCann came in, got them going, and they've carried it on this year. And hopefully we're that team. Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty off the pitch. But I just hope with that, I mean, we still have no idea what's going on, do we? But I hope it isn't a big nuclear bomb dropped on the football club now. I think it's shown that it doesn't need to be that. There needs to be some changes, clearly, but not changing everything, ripping up a lot of stuff that's working, a lot of stuff that if you just had a bit of salt and pepper, to quote Mr. Keith Hill, to that group, and salt and pepper probably being quite expensive, salt and pepper and some really high quality League One players, if we've got the money we think we're going to have, to a lot of that group, I think you have a squad that can definitely challenge for top 3 in this league. I don't want us to go down the route of, right, new director of football, new manager, whole new coaching staff, 20 new players. I think there's plenty of examples of that just not working at football clubs. And we've seen that it doesn't need much to win games of football in League Two. But we need a bit more quality. Definitely, we can't be blinded by a 7 or 8 game run, but there are certainly players in that squad who can play a part in a promotion winning side. And and I would. I know the manager's going to come up in conversation now. I think he is showing absolutely everything that I would want from a manager of this football club. And he's got pedigree. I think people forget that he was pretty much the guy responsible for Port Vale going up that season. Darrell Clark was the manager. Because of tragic circumstances, he had to take a leave of absence for a lot of that year. So you could argue that Andy Crosby has a promotion on his CV from League Two in quite recent times. He's coached at high level international football and in the Championship. And then when he's had the sort of audition, we're seeing tactical changes. Like the second half today, he quite clearly changed the shape. Connor Jennings became more of a two up top, a little bit more direct with Finlay behind them. Regan actually dropped a little bit deeper. And that worked so well. And he's taken on now. You look at the managers as he's taken points off, like Graham Alexander, Darren Moore, David Artell, like really good League Two managers, Paul Cook. And he's got the better of them in lots of cases. So he's doing that. We're seeing a real identity in how we want to play. I think that some of the football is as good as I've seen from us for a number of years. The pressing and the aggressiveness, I think, is when we speak of a Tranmere Rovers team and they want to fight and graft, I think that's what you want to see. You want to see a very organised, aggressive press from the defenders, from the midfield, which he's brought in. I just don't see who you're going to get that can improve it.
I mean, with each passing game at the moment, the case does become stronger and stronger for Andy Crosby to get the job, and it is very hard to argue against him, especially when you're basking in the sunlight of a 4-0 victory over a Chesterfield side who are much higher up the table than Tranmere. I do still have the fear that it's a very different role being a firefighting caretaker who is then expected to progress the club to the next level. And look, ultimately, we won't know if he's going to be successful at that unless he's given a chance at it. But I do think it is something that is quite difficult to do. But saying that, you might want to be better the devil, and instead of going to get someone new, because there'll be plenty of pressure on whoever does get the job in the summer, if it's not Andy Crosby, to go and deliver because of how well Tranmere are currently finishing the season. So it's a really difficult situation for the new owners, whoever and whenever they may come in, to make. I suspect they will go down a different route. I suspect they'll very much be looking at the almost celebrity style manager, the big name, but that's not what you need in League Two. It's very rare that someone has stepped down to League Two and been a huge success when they've been a mega name. And we can all think of plenty of names who have dropped down to this level and it hasn't worked for them. It's not working for Mark Hughes at Carlisle at the moment, just like it didn't particularly work out for him at Bradford. And there are many other examples. For some reason, the only one who comes to my mind at the moment is Sven when he was at Notts County for a very short period. But it could be a case of better the devil, I guess we'll see. The proof will be what happens next season, and it's very hard to judge who the manager's going to be until we know who the owner's going to be.
Yeah, and I think managerial appointments, they are hard to do, and I mean, crikey, we know that with some of the appointments we've made, don't we? But you look at clubs and ones with a lot of money as well. MK Dons, Gillingham, Carlisle. Like, these are clubs and they've got great managers. Like, if someone had said at the start of the season, right, we're getting Scott Lindsay as manager or Mark Bonner as manager, you'd say, oh, great proven League Two manager. And both really struggled and flopped. So even the big names aren't a guarantee of success. So, like, I always think with managers, you're looking, what are you looking for? I think with Tranmere, I think possibly more than like lesser supported clubs, that sort of understanding with the fan base, I think, is very important. I think Andy Crosby has shown that. And even little things, like, I think before the game, he comes out, he acknowledges all the fans. And Nigel Atkins would come out and he'd barely, even at the end of the game, he'd do a couple of claps from by the dugout and that'd be it. And I don't think that sent the right message, that it was almost like, I'm better than you. Whereas I think Crosby has sort of united everyone and shown that. I think you're looking at a manager, they have to be good tactically. I think he's very clearly shown that. And the identity that he's instilled, which I'm so impressed he's been able to get an identity into a team who are, like you say, are firefighting, which so often you just associate with be organised, thump it forward, and just play off scraps and try and scrape games. He's come in and he's got a very organised out of possession side, and in possession were unrecognisable. So it's a style of play that if he starts off next season and it doesn't work out after 15 games, I don't think it's going to be a big challenge to find someone to come in to improve that style. I think if you had someone who was a bit more unique, whether it was like a very long ball or very direct type of play, and then like Carlisle have found, they went from Paul Simpson, very direct, to then trying to bring a total football manager in, and you just couldn't make that change. And that was poor management on their part to try that, I think. So I think he has to be given the opportunity. I just can't see why an argument for not. I think he's got the pedigree. I think he's showing it in every quality that you'd look for in a manager of this football club. And there's plenty of instances of managers going on. I mean, I think back to how Eddie Howe started at Bournemouth with, ironically, beating us in his first game as caretaker, I think it was. Came in, firefighting job, and then ultimately took him up the leagues. Now, I'm not saying Andy Crosby is going to do that, but who knows? If you come in, I think where he's worked, he'll have some good ideas on football and what needs to improve. I think the way we're playing will probably be more attractive to loan players than maybe previously as well. And if new owners can invest those funds in better players, better scouting, better recruitment, all that type of stuff, I think that would be a smarter use of money for now than changing a manager who has very clearly got the football club on an upward curve. It's like you say, if a new one comes in, very much like Keith Hill after Dawes and Parky to an extent, you don't want to appoint a manager after a really good run of games. So for me, I hope he gets a job. I'm so impressed with how he's managing things. I know it's a small sample size, but ultimately you have to make judgments on what you see, and I wouldn't want to see him leave the football club.
Small sample size, but 4 wins in 8 games now, which is pretty impressive, especially given there's only been 1 defeat in that time as well. I was actually having a little look at how long it had taken managers to get 4 wins as Tranmere boss, and it fascinated me, and it goes back to the statement that we had from Mark Palios when he backed Nigel Adkins. It fascinates me how many of them have actually done it in quicker than 8 games. Ian Dawes obviously got 4 wins in his first spell in charge in just 5 games. Mickey Mellon, it took him just 5 games to get to 4 wins in his first spell in charge. Ronnie Moore, when he came back for his second spell, it took him just 4 games in his first 5 games in his first spell in charge to get to 4 wins. The ones who took a long time, it never happened for Mike Jackson. He never got there. It never happened for Ian Dawes in his second spell. It never happened for Rob Edwards. For Nigel Adkins, it was the longest. It was something like, I haven't got it in front of me now, but it's about 13, 14 games to get to 4 wins as Tranmere manager. And it was something similar for Mickey Adams. But it struck me as how quick a lot of people got to 4 wins as Tranmere boss, which again makes a mockery of saying that changing boss doesn't work, because clearly it has worked for Tranmere at this stage. There's a few questions there. Phil Higby says, would Crosby be a good number 2 to a new manager coming in? I mean, I think he's excelled himself so much that there will be a suitor out there for him in the summer. He's done such a good job that if Tranmere don't want him as manager, there will be someone that looks at his CV and goes, he's rescued Tranmere from relegation, let's give him a go. in League Two. And Stephen says, when was the last time, if ever, we had 3 players wear the captain's armband in one match? It will have happened before. I'm sure it will. But for those of you who didn't notice, Connor Jennings wore it to start with. When he came off, he handed it to Leo Connor. And then when Tom Davis came on, Leo Connor handed it over to Tom Davis. So 3 different skippers in one game. It definitely will have happened before. Much easier than the days when John Aldridge was in charge. Some people will remember that Tranmere used to use masking tape as their captain's armband. I distinctly remember Wayne Allison having masking tape round his arm to be used as the captain's armband back in the day. But yeah, much easier to have it when it's an actual armband as opposed to a piece of sticky tape. So I guess that the last thing, or last 2 things to say is, I think the Carlisle result was absolutely perfect for Tranmere today, Tom, because they got a win. I know a lot of people go, what do you mean you wanted Carlisle to win? But it just keeps them interested. Going to Morecambe next week. Morecambe against Carlisle is absolutely mega next week. So one of them is going to drop points. We know that Carlisle are already 9 behind Tranmere. If Carlisle can go to Morecambe and show a bit of fight and get a draw or even get a win, and they scored an 84th minute winner, by the way, against Newport today, then it means Morecambe are further away from Tranmere. And Carlisle potentially could still be 9 points away from Tranmere, even if they go and get a win next weekend. So I think that was a good result, actually, for Tranmere today, them getting that. And we know that Accrington obviously slipped up on Morecambe as well. So Tranmere moving above Accrington in the table. And secondly, have you got your ticket for Accrington next week? Because if not, it is now sold out, which is remarkable from Tranmere fans' point of view. It shows how much interest there is in the game. Also, bit of a shame that Accrington aren't giving them the full allocation that you can get on that terrace, but well done to the Tranmere fans who've managed to get their hands on a ticket. Have you got yours, Tom?
I actually haven't, because I'm off to the Masters on Monday. So
it's all right for some. You go to Augusta, it's fine.
I know. And the problem is you can't have phones at Augusta. So I'm probably going to have to use, they have these little old-fashioned pay phones on the golf course. So I'm going to have to ring someone to find out what the score is. So yeah, if anyone gets a phone call from a random US telephone box, it will be me asking, have we demolished Andy Holt's team 3-0, which again, I think is quite petty that he's not given the sort of full allowance for that terrace. I think we know the reasons why. I think we can understand maybe the reasons why, but I hope that it's relayed to the players and the coaching staff that, look, this is what they're trying to do. And Andy Holt can give the team talk for Andy Crosby in that game. And we can go there, hopefully put 4 past them like teams seem to be doing. And I think we do that, we're looking up rather than down.
Ray Ruddy says, how many sold for Aki? I think Tranmere were given allocation of about 1,000. Am I right in saying Bradford took about 2,500 there, Tom? I mean, for a club that is usually close in terms of their profit margins aren't huge, if at all, and need as much money as they can get, I am surprised that they haven't allowed more Tranmere fans to go. It's not that Tranmere would take 2,500. I don't think they would, but I don't think 1,500 would have been out of the question. And, you know, if you've got another 500 people paying roughly 20 quid per ticket, it's a decent chunk of money for a club like Accrington. It's a decent chunk of money for a club like Tranmere. I'm not trying to belittle them at all. But yeah, I can understand why they have. But also, I think, you know, financially, it's not a decision that particularly makes sense. What's the time difference between Augusta and Accrington?
Pretty sure it's about 10 a.m. in the morning, the kickoff. So on a Saturday. So you never know if the 2 boys I'm looking after, if they can pull the finger out and have one of them nice late tee-off times by leading the tournament. And it
might have missed the cut by then, Tom.
Better not be. No, we'll have them. They can be in the final group at about 1:30 tee-off, and I can get to watch Accrington. And if they do that, I'll be very, very happy.
We will see what happens. Hopefully you have a great time out there. For those of you who don't know, Tom, very much involved in pro golf, as you can probably guess. So good luck to your lads out there, Tom. Fingers crossed Tranmere can get the job done at Accrington as well, because it's going to be a big, big weekend in Tranmere's history, particularly if it goes their way. And as I say, if Morecambe and Carlisle hold each other to a draw and Tranmere get a win, then I just cannot see a way that Tranmere get caught in the table. So thanks to all of you for tuning in, for listening, for your interaction throughout the evening as well. It's great to see so many of you online and getting in touch with us. We will be back on the A Trip to the Moon podcast. Now, a very friendly lady came up to me in the fan park in the marquee today and asked, how do I listen? How do I actually get the podcast? So if you don't know, you can subscribe through Patreon. It costs just £3 a month. And for that, during the season, you get your 3 weekly shows. You get a match review like this one. You get a news show on a Thursday, previewing the next game. And you get a feature interview on a Tuesday as well. So pay your £3 a month. You get all of that content. Sign up at Patreon. Go to a trip to the moon pod.co.uk. You can then listen on the Patreon app, or Patreon gives you a special link, which means you can access it on Spotify, which might be even easier for you as well. So that's the best way to do it. But just £3 a month. Hopefully that's good value. I like to think it is. If you do sign up, you'll be able to listen to the feature interview that I've got coming this week on Tuesday with Ken Beamish, who played for Tranmere in the 70s, 60s and 80s. There aren't many people who've played for Tranmere in 3 different decades, but Ken Beamish is our guest this week to talk about his time at Tranmere and how much he enjoyed that. And there's another feature interview coming soon with Sean Garnett. We'll also be back on Thursday with the news show. And then, of course, next Sunday morning with a review of hopefully a positive trip to Accrington. Thank you to all of you for tuning in. Thanks for Tom for his time as well. You can go and enjoy the rest of your Saturday now.